Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to A Celtic World, the tactical review. My name is Anthony Maguire. As always, I'm joined by Paul Massey as we look at Auchinleck Talbot 0, Celtic 2, fourth round Scottish Cup match. We got through the tie. That's the important thing. But unfortunately, not in too much style. The game being played at Rugby Park. For all you that know, that's Kilmarnock's home ground, so a lovely plastic pitch, which usually kills any good football, or it's a place where good football goes to die. But Celtic not exactly firing on all cylinders last night. Martinoneill ringing the changes. But we'll get into that in a minute and talking all things Celtic. 19 days into a transfer window, and we've got one loanee right back. I'm sure we'll both have our say on that. Paul's raised his eyebrows. But before we get into that, how was your weekend, mate? What did you get up
to? What did I get up to? Can't remember. Not a lot, to be honest. My lovely wife was out for the day with the girls on Saturday, so it left me a bit of a loose end. So I had a couple of beers with a mate. Beyond that, not much. Just relaxing, trying to have first week back at work after the surgery. So I needed a rest after 5 days of work. Just quite chilled. And then, as we were sort of saying just before we came on air, both absolutely knackered because that horror show was at 1:30 a.m. kickoff for the good people of Western Australia. And so, my alarm went off at 1:25. That was fun. And I'd have rather been asleep for most of it, to be honest. And by the end, I was just hoping, well, before we scored the second, I was just praying we didn't lose an equaliser and I'd have to watch another 30 minutes and potentially penalties of it. So grateful for small mercies. That was that's where we've got to with this team and squad at the moment. But as you said in the intro, we're in the hat for the next round. That's about as much as you could hope for after a performance like that. So yeah, we progress. The somewhat of a magician that Martinoneill appears to be has produced another clean sheet and another win. So on the face of it, you can't really argue too much. But as we do, we will pick through the bones of this one. Probably not for the full hour because it's one to forget, I'm sure. But there are a few things worth having a chat about, and then I guess we will talk more broadly about state of affairs as they are nearly 2/3 through the window. So yeah, fun and games.
Yeah, I managed a cheeky spice bag at Molly's on Friday night. That was probably one of my highlights. But we had a relatively quiet weekend. We've got the Perth Fringe Festival kicks off this weekend. My wife's involved with that, so we've got a busy few weeks ahead. So we kind of thought we'd take the opportunity to try and have a quiet one. Got to catch up with my brother as well, which was nice. So that was got to have breakfast and have a pint with him as well. So that was good. But otherwise, yeah, nice and relaxed. And after the day I've had at work today, thank God, because anyway, less said about that, the better. I'm going to fire some comments in, Paul, then we'll get into the team lineup for the game, because as I said, Martin made 10 changes, but we'll get to that in a second. My old man straight in, cannot believe that the bookies have us favourites to beat Hearts. We'll touch on that later on. But we've got obviously last night's game to get through first. But yeah, it is interesting. But Hearts have got their own injury problems as well. But apparently they're going to sign players to cover those injuries. So a few jokes online.
How novel.
They'll probably get their players in before we do, even though we've had injuries for like 3 months. But anyway, and again, he's saying here that Martin did say we'd have signings this week. So let's see. Yes, let's not call Martin a liar yet. He did say that there'd be some action this week. Maybe a couple of coming on the way in, but we'll see. And then Andrew Gallagher looking for some positives. Well, at least a few boys got a run. Run in loose inverted commas, but yes. McLaughlin P with the old stippies there. And 4:30 a.m. I'm taking that. That's a European game for us, so that's our usual European sort of game. So that's
not this week. Not this week though. We got an early kickoff this week, so it's the same as half 1 in the morning on Friday morning. So that'll be fun. Another one, same week. Too old for that, but we will be up again. Oh, I was just going to say. Well, I meant to touch on this last second. The other thing is, I almost decided to sleep in and then watch the replay on the upload from Celtic TV. But I thought, a gap between when the game finishes and when I 1 to 2 hour gap between when I want to watch it. I don't trust them to get it up that quickly. And lo and behold, the second half was only put up about an hour ago. So this is just as well. I didn't resort to that tactic. That's the Celtic TV, the good people of the Globe pay somewhere around £150 or $300 for effectively a season ticket for overseas fans. Not exactly great value.
That's world class at everything we do, Paul. You know how it is. You know how it goes. Anyway, enough about that for now. Team lineup. This is how Martin decided to line up. It was quite funny. He made a few comments about how he had some good memories in the Scottish Cup and some bad memories. Obviously, his bad memories getting bundled out by Inverness Caledonian Thistle. He made one change too many, he felt, that day, and he took responsibility for it. 25 years later, took responsibility at the time as well, but felt the need to take the responsibility again for that all over again in the pre-match press conference. But he definitely run the changes here. So he's made 10 changes. So the only easier just to say who retained the spot in the team, and no surprises, that was Callum McGregor. Everyone else was either on the bench or not getting a look in. So a Scottish back four of Ralston, Murray, Welsh and Donovan. Sinisalo in goals. They had McGregor, Bernardo and Balaquisha in the midfield. Balaquisha playing in that sort of 10 role. And then Forrest and McCowan on the wings. Forrest playing in the least preferred left wing position. And then Kenny up front. And then that left a bench of, obviously, basically our usual starters just in case we needed them. Paul, obviously the idea was, the European game, we're kind of tied in with who we've got there. So even if we bring players in, that's a pretty big if. But even if we do, they won't be able to feature. And obviously we've got a top of the table clash at the end of next week. So end of this week. So he's going to have to play his strongest team there as well. So this was obviously probably a last opportunity to get a few guys 90 minutes. What were you sort of thinking? What time did you wake up? Because originally I was going to wake up at 1 o'clock and really get myself prepared and take notes and do whatever. But I ended up kiboshing that idea and went 25 past 1, 5 minutes to go for a pee, get the iPad firing, and just catch the start of the game and obviously try and digest the starting lineup. So I take it you went along a similar avenue.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts?
25 past 1, my alarm went off, and I was probably in front of the telly 2 or 3 minutes later. So yeah, ready for I think I saw them come out of the tunnel. So that's when I sort of tuned in. My thoughts were, not a huge surprise, to be honest, in terms of wholesale changes, but very makeshift. We've got Donovan playing left back. But the oddest selection for me was to put the natural-footed players on the opposite wings. So you had, as you said, right-footed James Forrest playing on the left wing, and you had left-footed Luke McCowan playing on the right wing. And without jumping too far ahead, that never really worked because we closed up. It didn't give us width. It meant that players were effectively turning into the inside to use their preferred foot, and it was Spizzy as in there. Obviously, they had 2 banks of 5 for most of the game. But yeah, other than that, I suppose it was interesting to see Balaquisha playing potentially his preferred position, which is 10. We don't think he looks much like a winger. He doesn't look much like a 10 either on that performance. And yeah, Bernardo will get a start. He's been, lucky to get any minutes. So you hope that he might show something, albeit against 6th tier opposition. But But for all the changes and for all the, second string element to the team, I fully expected, foolish of me, that we would be able to put Auchinleck, Talbot to the sword. Like they've been punched above their weight. They've had a good run to this stage, but even Celtic second string should be putting 3 or 4 past non-league opposition, but not to be.
Yeah, and I think that was Martinoneill's ultimate frustration at the end of the game was that that second goal took 85 minutes for it to come. I don't think Cal McGregor was stick on to play virtually the whole game. I think he'd have been coming off at halftime if this had been wrapped up, but it just kind of shows where the Celtic squad's at the moment, where you need your captain out there against 6th tier of Scottish football to ensure that you're going to get the result that you want. The guy plays enough games as it is, to be an ideal opportunity to rest him as well. I don't actually know who do you put in his place right enough, but it just sort of sums up the narrative of the squad at the moment that we're solely lacking leaders on the park, and we're relying on the same few to inspire and to keep everybody going. We'll get into some of the incidents, Paul, because there wasn't too many, to be fair. I mean, it was a game chock full of possession. I didn't really feel at any real point we were under any real threat. There was one chance in the first half that I'm sure the highlights reel will get to, but as much as Talbot sort of frustrated us and we can break them down, that also equally they weren't really getting out of their half to put us under any real pressure either. So I mean, there's a bit of a narrative that we're lucky to escape and all sort of nonsense. Like it wasn't that sort of game. Like it wasn't like end to end. Like it was complete control. I mean, if Wilfred Nancy was in charge, then it would have been end to end and it would have been held to skelter, and it might have ended up 6-2 or something ridiculous. But this was controlled, but it was just, you're expecting players who haven't played much football, guys, like you say, shoehorned into positions that are probably not their preferable position. And I just felt that the pace of the passing, and factor in the blustery conditions, factor in the plastic pitch, and the fact that Talbot sat in, just, it was all just designed just to frustrate, and frustrated probably Celtic players. It frustrated us watching it. It frustrated the manager. It just highlights the lack of quality in the squad. If you take out the sort of the key starters, the backup, the change, the guys you bring off the bench to spark a change aren't there. And that's probably the takeaway that I would take away from it. Martinoneill sort of said that he didn't sort of see anything that he didn't already know, and I kind of just felt that he's probably thinking a few of these guys are picking up a paycheck and aren't sort of aren't good enough. And yesterday's performance probably just kind of typified that, really, I would have thought. And yeah, I'm happy to get your thoughts on individuals, because we don't like to pick individuals out too much, but there's a few that spring to mind. But anyway, this was the first sort of real chance here. We had Stephen Welsh actually play a really nice ping pass in here. That's McCowan over. Oh, my mouse is in the wrong spot over here. So ball comes in, headers back across. Believe it or not, McCowan's actually offside in this situation. It is blown up, but so I just played in for Kenny to have a chance on goal, but ultimately puts it straight down the keeper's throat, which is pretty much Kenny's MO. This is it again. Obviously no VAR lines, but I mean, obviously camera angles can sort of confuse and deceive. But yeah, I mean, offside. But I like the ball from Welsh. But I guess this was the thing, was that some of our best creative play came from Stephen Welsh and Liam Stales when he came on late, are just pinging these sort of cross-field passes. It's a little bit of an indictment when your inspiration and your best chances, maybe for the half, are coming from these types of balls.
Well, yeah, but I think they're about the only people on the pitch that had any space. That's at time, yeah. So there was no pressure on them, so they were able. It's a great ping for Welsh, and yeah, him being recalled from Motherwell stint where he's doing well, again, sort of is a bit of an indictment of where we are. But It's not his fault. It's definitely other people's fault. But yeah, he comes in. We needed the depth, so it's a great ball. I think if this goal goes in, it probably stands. I don't think he's offside there. I think the officials generally had a pretty poor game, particularly the referee. Some odd decisions, and I don't trust our sort of budget version of VAR. And we'll come on to
Well, you say
Kenny's.
budget version, Paul. The Premier Sports said it was $10,000 to put VAR in for the game, and if you are playing at a Premier League fixture, then you had to have VAR. So even though Auchinleck Talbot are a non-league side, they still had to foot the bill for VAR because it was getting played at Rugby Park. But 10 grand for somebody to sit there and manually draw lines, and there's one in the second half, which from the angle you're looking at it, it's like, how can you tell that Kenny was offside? Because it was actually a wonderful finish, and credit where it's due. I mean, he did everything right there, but
I don't think that one's offside, and I don't think this one's offside. Obviously, this one doesn't get checked by VAR because it doesn't make it into the net. This is off on the linesman. But like I say, I think if Kenny tucks this away, potentially, hopefully, you'd think, based on that, I think the defender's shoulders ahead of McCowan's. But it's very, very tight. And I think even Michael Stewart in the commentary on Premier Sports said it was very, very tight, but obviously didn't need to go to VAR because he missed the chance. But good ball, nice header. And Kenny's a wee bit unlucky, right? Like I think I was quite impressed with parts of his performance. His movement was good. He got himself into the right positions. Took his goal well. Finish for the second that I think should have stood was an absolute brilliant bit of skill.
It was like Jota, wasn't it? That was like Jota against Rangers. It was that same acute angle chip. Like he got it all right for a change. But the thing for me that infuriates Kenny is that he just tends to hit the keeper like more often than not. Like he just hits it straight down the middle. It's like, put it a yard either side. The keeper actually has to make a save. At the moment when he gets that sort of connection, it just seems to go straight ahead. And it's like the keeper just has to stand there and it hits him, or he can catch it or whatever. But that's the only frustration for me, is that like if he puts it a yard either side and the keeper pulls a save, then so be it. That's fine. The keeper makes a save, force the keeper to make a save. But when you hit it down the keeper's throat, I don't think that's good enough. And Neil Lennon, sort of said that about Kenny after the game. He says he's raw. He needs to hone his skills. He has raw attributes which could be honed and harnessed and turned into someone who could be an effective striker, an effective number 9. But is Celtic really the place to hone when you only play with one striker? And at the moment we are like on the bones of our arse in terms of squad and try to score goals and all the rest of it. But you kind of feel that for him to develop, he needs to play, but he probably needs to play somewhere else in the Premiership and get game time week in, week out, get his 10 or 12 goals that he probably would get if he started every week and, played for a Motherwell or even Falkirk. They were crying out for a striker. I mean, as much as we huffed and puffed against them during the week, if Falkirk actually had a decent striker, they probably would have put us under a hell of a lot more pressure than how it all sort of panned out in the end. So, I mean, I just think if we could sign
an out of form Johnny Kenny would not have been hit, right? But I see what you're saying.
But if we could have signed 2 strikers, then he can go out and loan and develop and hone. And maybe in 6 months, 12 months, maybe there is a player there. But just at the moment, like it's just his confidence is so low. It's in the bottom of the Clyde River. Like it's frustrating. And it's not his fault, because he's literally the only fit striker we've got. Like, all right, we've got Maeda, but that's it. Like that's your choices. I mean, Yamada's so far off it, and he came on maybe 5 minutes ago or whatever, and I don't know what you're expecting him to do in 5 minutes, but it's him or nothing at the moment, and it's almost not fair. But he's such a confidence guy, but he just needs a season where he can bang some goals in and get a bit of confidence, a bit of swagger, and come back. But just at the moment, I just don't see it. And I just don't see playing him at Celtic at the moment isn't going to solve that problem either. So it comes back to this whole issue of recruitment. Like I say, we're 19 days into a transfer window. We don't have a striker in the door. We've got Hearts at the end of the week. it's almost criminal. Well, it's criminal. And, you know, it harks back to all the issues that we've discussed on this podcast, and it is discussed on lots of Celtic podcasts at the moment, is that, you know, the recruitment's dismal, and we don't seem to know what we're doing. And we're hamstrung by having to run everything past Dermot Desmond. Anyway. But yeah, but like I said, sorry, a bit of a tangent on Kenny there. But like I said, as much as, yeah, I just think he's he's stuck. He's stuck. He's in this situation, and it's not fun.
I thought he played pretty well, considering. Obviously, you got to take into account the opposition, but I thought he ran the channels well. He took up good positions. He had a couple of good finishes, albeit one got chopped off. On another night, he could have had a hat trick. Like, you know, they could tuck that one away that saved, and he's probably not offside. He gets his goal that was chopped off. He hit the header with it off the bar. You should probably tuck that away. And it's not that long ago. He scored that brilliant header against Rangers in the semi-final. Like, that was a really, really good finish. That seems like a lifetime ago, and it probably feels like a lifetime ago to him. But it's only the other side of the Nancy debacle that happened. It was in Neill's first interim stint. So yeah, I agree. I don't like he needs confidence, and he'll only get that from goals, and you'll only get goals from playing. But there's so much pressure on him, and he doesn't. The problem with the way we are utilizing our striker at the minute, and this goes for anyone, is they don't actually see a lot of the ball. The main time they see the ball is when they've got a chance to tuck it away. So it really does need to be on it. I do like. I've been critical of him. I don't think he should be. He certainly should be leading line for Celtic at the moment, but it's not his fault that he's the only fit and fit and qualified to play that position player in the squad. And he's doing the best he can. Unfortunately, he's that's not at the level we need. But yeah, I've been critical, but I'm starting to feel a bit sorry for him, because we're having to rely on him because of the failings are well above his level. So, you know, the board and the scouting team, the recruitment team, just an absolute shambles.
This comment here from Andrew Galea saying, "Will we get Parrott?" Is that the Leeds guy? Was that article you sent today?
No. I think he's called Pirro. I think they mean Troy Parrott, the Irish striker, who's at AZ Alkmaar. I think is where he is. I think they bought him for between 8 and 10. And he's probably worth the best part of 15 to 20 now, based on the performance he's had in the Dutch league and his exploits for Ireland. So as much as I would like Troy Parrott to be added to our squad, I think there's about as much chance as me or you getting signed for Celtic to play up front as him coming in. Unfortunately,
I had the two that I've read that sort of like went, oh, well, they're our third quality. Is that the Danish striker wins, but apparently he's injured till the end of January before he'd be able to come back. So he's sort of like, well, you get him in the door, he can't actually play. So I don't think that's necessarily what we need right now. And then the other one was the lad he played for Roma, who absolutely tore us apart and ragdolled as the Irish boy. But again, I just don't see how we were ready to negotiate with Brighton and make that happen. But, you know, no. But,
well, yeah.
Wishful thinking.
There's a few out there. And there'll be, you know, I think we're talking about is it Bamba, the Ivorian that's at Laurent? And we're still talking about Fofana at Chelsea. Apparently he's been recalled. Okay. He's been recalled from his loan, so he's definitely going somewhere else, and they want to sell him on a permanent deal. So I'd be surprised if we do that. So yeah, I don't know. We need somebody in. That's for absolute sure. Ferguson, complete non-starter. There's no way Bloom will sanction. It doesn't matter even if you wanted to come to Celtic, Bloom won't sanction it. It's just the same as Leeds wouldn't sanction sending one of their strikers to play for us to help against Rangers. It's absolutely nonsense. And yeah, that story, while we're on about it, is the Yorkshire Evening Post, based out of my old stomping ground in Leeds, ran a story that the board were confused and laughed that out of consideration. And the fact that somebody at Celtic even thought that the the 49ers would
Leeds
sanction that.
were going to do us a favour. Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. But that's where I think I put a tweet out earlier along the lines of that Celtic in microcosm. We're completely unhinged in terms of our working process. We have got no strategy, and just this kind of daft, fuzzy thinking. It's just ridiculous that we're even at that point.
The same goes for the Kyoto deal, because Birmingham laughed us out the building as well, because they're like, well, you messed us about with Yang 6 months ago. Like, you can go and take a running jump if you think we're going to negotiate you with Kyoto. So, I mean, we're burning bridges with clubs left, right, and centre. We now have this situation where you've got conglomerates who have teams in other leagues that are in our league that aren't going to do you any favours either. So, it's just, again, it seems so obvious, but then it's like, does that even, like, I just think that, like, Celtic are just like, again, it's the old adage, it's an analog mentality in a digital age. They're just like, they're so dinosaur, like, it's like prehistoric, their approach to doing all this. It's so slow, and it's like the laughing joke was the team lineup is monitoring and assessing the situation, and that's the team lineup, because that's all you see online. It's like Celtic are, that's the catchphrase is like, oh, we're monitoring this player, and we've inquired about this player, and it's like, where's the advanced talks? Where's the, like, clubs have agreed? Like, there's just none of it, and it's just like, it just muddled thinking, and it's really, really concerning. All right, maybe cut half of it out and say that it's probably just guys trying to get clicks online, and it's probably a nonsense, but we don't seem to be close to anything at the moment. And it's just, I mean, if they turn around tomorrow and go, this player and this player, fantastic, great, fantastic. But, that'll be us like 20, that'll be us 2/3 of the way through the window. And, at the moment, nothing's happened. But, Paul, this was, speaking of players collecting their wage for Celtic, obviously we touched on Kenny, but this was Balikwisha's moment to shine. I'm going to make this a bit bigger because it's a wee bit hard to see at the moment. Hang on, bear with me. So we've got the ball. McCowan's releases Ralston, I believe, if this comments to be this things be believed. Ball comes across, cut back. The dummy by Kenny, I believe, or dummy by Forrest. Somebody dummies it, and then Balikwisha's coming in here. Basically, no one in front of him really. He's got the guy sort of chasing him back.
Yeah, I think it's pulled behind. Kenny's going to the front post. It's pulled behind him, and then I think Forrest presumably gets the shout from Balikwisha and behind him.
We don't get another image of that, so that's the best it gets apparently. But anyway, spoiler alert: Balikwisha blasts it over the bar and doesn't get on target, and
Yeah, hoys it, leans back, hoys it over the bar. Honestly, easier to score. And look, it's been said elsewhere, but I find it almost unbelievable that we followed this guy for 3 or 4 windows, nearly 2 years of monitoring and looking into. And after all of that, we decided he was worth spending 5 million quid on. It's just ridiculous. Like, this just sums us up, right? We spent 5 million quid on him and probably gave him a 4 or 5 year deal, I imagine. I can't remember. Meanwhile,
5 year deal.
Meanwhile, we've quibbled at multiple windows over the last year or two, maybe longer, probably longer, over a couple $100,000 here or 500,000 there. And I'm sure it is happening now and will continue to happen. We're sitting on 77 million quid in the bank. We're going to have to pay over the odds for players. This is why you end up paying 5 million for Balikwisha. But you're not going to be able to hardball anyone in the final days of the January window or the previous 2 or 3 weeks, because everyone knows we're sitting on nearly 80 million quid of cash. So if the going rate is 5 million for a player, we'll be playing 6 or 7. And I'm sorry, the board has put themselves in a position where everyone knows that. We're absolutely desperate. They have to pay a premium for incompetence. That's as simple as it gets. And if the player wants an extra few grand a week to make the deal happen, we're going to have to pay that as well. Because we're desperate. we're a club in it's a complete shambles. There's pretty much civil war between fans and boardroom, rightly so. But as a backdrop with all of that, and we're on technically our 4th manager of the year, even though it's the second one back again. But it's the 4th different manager that's been in play over stints. Like, there's not a lot going, and we're sitting 2nd, 3rd. There's not a lot if you're a player coming in, there's not a massive draw to come and sign for us at the moment. So you really either really want it, or the package is pretty attractive. So the board have got to suck it up. This is what they've done. But to think that we spent 10 million on Balikwishan and Telesri Tenecti in the final throes of the window, when we could have spent that 10 million on probably one player, one decent striker. If we spent the 10 on one decent striker before the Almaty game,
Talbot was the one that was quoted, wasn't it? He was the one
it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter who was quoted. You take the 10 million, take 12, and buy a striker that gets you 25, 30 goals a season. That probably fires you past Kairat Almaty and into the Champions League. That guarantees you another 40 million. And in the last 10 days of the window, you can go spend that. If you don't want to spend the 80 you've already got, go and spend the 40 that's coming for getting into the Champions League, and then maybe have a tilt at it. The fact that we're sitting here talking about this again, and as I think somebody said, we're laymen and we can see what's going on compared to these idiots in the boardroom. It just utterly bamboozles and beggars belief the state that boardroom's in. However bad Tisdale is, what's the rest of the scouting department been doing? There appears that
we haven't got one. We haven't got one.
Martinoneill has basically had to start recruitment from scratch on the 30th or the 1st, or well, no, when was the game? The 5th of January. He's had to start from scratch. Yeah. So whatever the list was that we had to look at players has either been binned, which is probably what's happened to it.
But to be fair, it should be because the guy's not got a clue. I mean, his recruitment's been dross. Like the players he brought in the Japanese laddies that unfortunately aren't up to scratch, and it's pretty damning. Like in Amada, the laddie who's gone back to Japan, like he basically said that he was training with the juniors. Like it was him and 2 other guys training by himself. And he's beginning to question whether he was actually a professional footballer. I mean, the guys come halfway around the world. It should never have happened. Like there should have been enough quality control to say, you know what, it's just not the right move. We shouldn't do it. But they've done it anyway. And then the poor guys just left training with a couple of other guys. Like that happened to me once. I mean, didn't play at any good level, but I was basically frozen out of the first team, and I was basically training with the under 18s, and I was a reserve player. And it's the most disheartening thing in the world to do that week in, week out. It's just you're not great. You're not going to get picked, so you're just basically a burden or a nuisance, and you feel that way, and it's a terrible, terrible feeling. I'll let it be known and voice my disapproval, but you don't think a Japanese player is going to do that, so they're too polite and by nature. But it's just another damning indictment, and you take the human aspect of it. It's just crap. Like it's just bad. And yeah, he's going to go back to Japan and say like he had a terrible time at Celtic. So the next Japanese prodigy, wonder kid, whatever, the next Hyogo or man.
Hatati.
No, Hatati. I'm going back 20 years.
Oh. Nakamura.
Isn't really touch Celtic with a barge pole. They treated him like shit.
But this is the problem. Our credibility and our reputation, the reputational damage this board has done to us over the last 12, 18 months is absolutely horrific. Like to the point, you have 4 managers and it's January. Like, who wants to come and play under that? There's no consistency. Even if you come, the manager that you're coming to play under isn't around at the end of the season. So you're signing a 3, 4, 5 year deal. Who's your next boss?
That's the problem. That's the problem.
You've got concerns. You've got overseas players coming in and being marginalised immediately. Now some of that is obviously Rodgers' ego and sticking it to the board and sticking it to Tisdale, going, I didn't ask for these players, you forced them upon me. I'm gonna make a point on it. And you can argue the rights and wrongs of that in terms of the human aspect, but he was absolutely right to push back on players that weren't at the level.
But they should have been signed in the first place, Paul. That's the thing. Like, that comes back to the manager should have the final say in all these players. And clearly he didn't have the final say in some of these players. They were forced upon him. And that's wrong. And that as a recruitment model is not right. They sit in their club signings. That shouldn't happen. That is not a thing. The manager is there to make it's his players. He's the guy that has to make them work in his team. Either he says yes and he wants them or he doesn't.
I don't mind a model that has club signings if you've got a proper director of football, you've got a fully functioning modern football department, and you're hiring head coaches rather than old school managers like that want control over everything. If you've got head coaches, yes, they'll have a say going, yep, that player fits my model. But I've got no real issue with a fully functioning football department identifying players that fit the system and will potentially be there past a manager's tenure, because that's the whole point of a director of football. Is the director of football should be there for multiple managers and oversee a general style of play and type of player that hits the scratch. But we're a mile off that. We're an absolute mile off that. We've got Sean Maloney trying to be director of football, head coach, assistant manager. God knows, he's pathway manager probably still. I'm sure he's not been backfilled on that. He's doing about 4 or 5 jobs. He must have a sorest back in Scotland carrying all those tasks, and he's the main guy on the pitch as well, on the training pitch pre-game. So yeah, just top to bottom, an absolute shambles. And this, unfortunately, it won't happen. But this time now is where any club that was working and functioning properly, CEO is gone, some of that board's gone. You get fresh blood there. They go, right, we need a proper director of football model and build out a football operations, get them in ahead of the new season, ahead of new manager. So the director of football is actually a key part of the recruitment process for the new manager. And then you can build it out and work from there. Do you think any of that will happen? Not a chance. Not a chance.
A word from our sponsors.
Every life is full of stories, and we all know someone whose story should be preserved. That's what an audio memoir is. A record of you or your loved one's life stories, family anecdotes, and poignant memories. We will talk online and then edit the recordings into episodes, accompanied by family photos and contemporaneous images of the past, creating an enduring audio-visual experience. We all know someone who deserves an audio memoir.
And for a discount on that service, please quote Celtic. And I believe it's 10% off. But yes, thank you for sponsoring this podcast. Paul, somebody put a question up here as a wee bit of a laugh, but I thought, why not? Who is the worst waste of money, Balakrisha or Barkas? You have to choose. Whew, tough one.
I think I as bad as they both were, I think this is quite easy. You can't have a goalkeeper with cabbages for hands. So
hologram hands, as he was. I remember was what I was calling him at the time.
It's the same money. I guess if anything, Barkas is more money because it's further back in time. So with inflation, which is a cheaper signing. So yeah, both horrendous. Barkas would give anyone PTSD that saw him play the very few games.
A good wee segue into this little bit of goalkeeping calamity from Sinisalo. So really the only thing he had to do the whole game, and he kind of made a bit of a meal of it. Came flapping for a corner, and thankfully Luke McCowan, who I didn't actually, there's a bit of debate whether he had a good game or a bad game. I didn't think he had a terribly great game, but this was one thing where he did get his body in the way here and blocked the Talbot player from getting a shot off here. So he defensively actually did a good job here.
He should have had a free kick as well. Instead, it was a corner to Talbot. But the corner. I think the set piece comes in. I think it's a corner.
Yes, it was a set piece, and then it becomes a corner after that. Yeah, I think. Yeah,
it comes to the back post. It's sort of, and then it's headed back into the area. And Sinisalo, you know, I get that there's been a call for him to play more on the basis of the quality that Kasper Schmeichel's produced for extensive periods this season, but you can see why there's been a reluctance. Just because there is someone else available doesn't necessarily mean that that's an upgrade. And yeah, I doesn't look like Sinisalo's it. He looks pretty suspect, or he has looked pretty suspect on cross balls. And this was another one. And given that's how teams try and get at us with set pieces that swing on top of defenders and goalkeepers, if a goalkeeper is making a pig's ear of crosses, which he seems to do, you know, that's not going to be the solution. So yeah, he only had that to deal with. I think there was another one he had a slightly better contact on. But yeah, a bit of a concern. And there was a couple of times around distribution where he sort of took a bit too much time. He hit one out of the park, I think. Second half.
There's a back pass from Dave Murray. He didn't handle that terribly well, and it all looked a bit awkward. And I was just like, you do not need to give a goal away here. Like, it just, anyway. So yes, a wee bit rough around the edges there. And I mean, he features, he's Finland's goalkeeper. I mean, he gets a start in national games for Finland. But yeah, like I said, it's just still a work in progress, I think. But anyway, we will come back to that one. We may as well talk about the goal, Paul. Kenny actually does quite well here. Sort of makes that run just in front of the front post. There is ball from McCowan. Again, this is probably his other real main contribution for the match. Actually, the images here. And then, basically, there's a slight deflection, but Kenny gets on the end of it and fires it into the top corner. Keeper doesn't have much chance from point blank range. And 1-0 deservedly. I mean, you know, all the possession and you know, had obviously chapped at the door a few times, but finally, you know, get the goal, settle the nerves. Bit of frustration that obviously takes 40 minutes for us to get a goal against, you know, lower league opposition, but the goal comes and we go into the halftime 1-0 up.
Yeah, no, so McCowan gets to the byline, which we rarely did. Every time we got to the byline, like the Ralston opportunity for Ballock, which is a good example. Every time we didn't do it often enough, but every time we did, we cut balls back or putting them in across the box. And lo and behold, who'd have thought it? You know, you get to the byline, put the ball in the dangerous area, you create chances. But despite that, we didn't do it very much. And as you can see, that's what I was talking about. McCowan, yeah, he is hitting it with his weaker foot, but you know, if that's James Forrest on that side, he can get to the byline and clip balls in, smash them across. He could be doing that all night. And the same with McCowan naturally on his left foot. He can get to the byline, clip things back and be more controlled. He gets a break. He puts it in a dangerous area and he gets a bit of luck, which we haven't had a huge amount of. The deflection takes it right into Kenny's path. And this is what I mean, like in terms of his movement. You know, he could quite easily have been sitting off in between the penalty spot and the 6-yard line, hoping for a break of the ball or a cut back to him. But he's gambled and he's got past the front post. And it looks like a really easy finish. I don't think this is as easy as you think because he's past the front post. There's only a little gap in between. And it comes, as I say, it deflects it his pass. So he hasn't got much time to react. I think it's a really good finish. Yes, it's one a striker should take, but given where his confidence levels, as we've touched on, and some of his other chances he's missed in recent weeks, you could have absolutely seen him just not quite getting that and pushing it past the post. So, you know, credit where it's due. It's a good little finish. And it's for a big relief for him. And you think you saw that on his face when the camera sort of zoomed in. There was relief more than joy or anything else. And to be honest, that's how it felt. Like I think for every Celtic fan watching the game or listening wherever you were, because it had been a slog to that point. And you know, you get one, you go, well, at least we're ahead, and then you worry that you could be pegged back because we're not exactly the most secure, and we don't look like scoring tons of goals either. But at least it broke the deadlock, and you thought, well, you know, 34th minute, get to half time, hopefully get another one. But if you don't, then get the manager in, boot up the arse.
I think in fairness as well, though, that they did identify the issue with the wingers at half time and they swapped them over at half time. So, I mean, you know, they weren't. They realised they'd made a boo boo there, and they adjusted in the second half, and I felt that it did create chances. So I'll run into those.
It did, but I don't see why we had to wait to half time to see that wasn't working. Like on the 2 or 3 occasions we got to the byline, even with the wrong foot, like a player with a weaker foot, it still created chances. I just think make that change earlier. And especially because the penalty box width of the pitch was absolutely congested. Like there was basically 2 banks of 5 plus all our players in there. The only place there was only any space was in the wide areas, and because we had effectively players inverting because their stronger foot was inside, they weren't holding the width, and we didn't have fullbacks really overlapping very much as well. Mainly, I think on the left because Donovan's naturally right-footed as well. Ralston did it a little bit. But yeah, it wasn't great, and it should have been changed earlier.
Yeah, I think the argument is that Sean Maloney is probably on his iPad scouting players and wasn't actually watching the game. But anyway, sort of multitasking. But an interesting comment for Pete McGee. I don't agree with all of it. He's sort of saying here, if you're a top manager and you see Desmond's character assassination of Brendan Rodgers, would you want to be associated with the club? Martinoneill is a board apologist who Dermot calls and who comes running. I don't agree with that bit saying that he's a board apologist. I think Martinoneill is strong enough to sort of call it out and call it as he sees it. But yeah, I agree. I think that statement from Dermot Desmond looks worse by the day in terms of it. I didn't like it at the time. And, as things move on, you just see how more dysfunctional our club is, and the fact that a minority shareholder was able to launch that sort of attack at an employee of a football club, our football club, is just, it's ridiculous. And meanwhile, Brendan Rodgers is in Saudi Arabia unbeaten, and he's won all his games since he's been there. So, funny enough, when you back somebody, they usually do all right. But anyway, enough about looking in the past. Rearview mirror, we're looking forwards. So I'm ready to bring up a couple of images, Paul. I'm just ready to run through this second half. And I'm ready to run through it all, and then we can just touch on things as we want to touch on. So bear with me as I do that. So we've got, this was, sorry, I've gone a wee bit. This was the free kicks. This was the first chance that we had in the second half. Decent ball in, and then Kenny really probably needs to hit the target here. Hits off the crossbar, goes out. But
we've still got the image from Kenny's goal first half.
Oh, do we? Sorry. Oh, okay. Technical difficulties. Sorry, hang on. Bear with me a second. I've just checked Paul off the stage. That's even better. Hey, Paul, welcome back.
Thanks, mate. I think is the one you're going to show the header.
Yes, is that up now?
There
we go.
Yeah. So it's a great delivery in. I don't know what the Talbot centre backs get caught under it a little bit. It's a good leap by Kenny. He should score. He should score. Right. He should score. And as I say, I compare it. The chance he scored against Rangers a few weeks back was a lot harder than this, and he took it really well. But he wasn't on the back of weeks and weeks of poor performance, etc.
So this is the one that obviously the ball's moved off Ralston's foot here, but this is Kenny offsides in this situation. This is where he runs in and does his lovely little dink. And obviously the image doesn't really show it here, but this is the VAR line. So this is the line we have to believe that shows that he is offsides as this ball is played. But the argument is, should there not be another frame here if Ralston's not even through his motion, the ball's not left his foot. But anyway, like I said, we see these all the time where it's like it's so close and it's like, well, is this how football is meant to be played? I guess is probably the question. But it was a wonderful finish, and he's probably done it of a brace there, to be fair, because that was an excellent finish.
It'd be a huge confidence. Like, I'm not saying it fixes everything overnight, but it would be a huge confidence boost for that goal to have stood, because I think he's timed his run perfectly, or if you believe VAR, very nearly perfectly. And then it looks like he's taken the ball too far round, and the keeper's done a good job of closing the angle. But it's a really, really good finish. If, like you said earlier, if it was Jota or Kyogo or Henrik Larsson, if you go far back enough, you'd be raving about that as a finish. It's absolute class. So I really feel for him that it didn't count. And I do think if it stood, you know, he probably goes on and gets another one, because he'd have been up and about it. But he's done everything right. Like, it's a good run and it's a great finish. And unfortunately, he's millimeters off.
Yeah.
This was
the Stales sort of clip, and he sort of puts Ralston in here, and Ralston unfortunately headers just wide of the keeper's right hand side here. Unlucky, but again, you know, I remember Alistair Johnson scoring these types of goals. So, you know, again, you're sort of judging, you're benchmarking against your best player. Would your best player score that? Possibly. But yeah, unfortunately, just wide on this occasion. And then this one here was Nygren's. He was on this stage and he turns and spins and has a shot. And unfortunately, the keeper forces a save on this one. Keeper does pull a save, but you know, that was his one chance to sort of get a goal. And then what we got here, we've got a little bit of a Kenny scramble in the box, and then this one was the Donovan shot. He, you know, part of me is like, yes, he could have done better here, but I think he's sort of gone for power when he maybe could have tried to place it. But from that image, there's quite a few bodies in the way there, so I'm not quite sure what he was maybe seeing in front of him there. It's probably a bit harder than it definitely looks. And this was the sealer. This was it. It's the last image we've got. Bit of space. I think the thing is, Talbot at this point had tired. You can see here there's a bit of a gap. You know, this probably wouldn't happen in normal circumstances, but gets a bit of space, cuts inside, looks up and goes, you know what, I'm having a pop. Top keeper's top left-hand corner, top right-hand corner, and that was it. 2-0, 85 minutes. Right, and take Cal McGregor off now.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great finish. And look, Sebastian Tenecti has been threatening to do this for pretty much since he came in, to be honest. Like, he's tried to shift that ball on into this kind of space and bend one in the top corner. And to be honest, he hasn't really got that close. He's had a couple that have whistled, you know, a foot wide or over. He's had some that have been like top tier. They've been that bad. But it's good to see that he's actually got this in his locker. Yes, he's got tons of space. They're tired. They're going down with cramp and all that. But then it's still a great finish. Like, it's still a really good finish. So hopefully that gives him a wee bit of confidence. Like, he, you know, again, poor opposition, but he was running at players. He was being doubled up on, and he was still getting round them and you know, to bylines and looking like he was a little bit dangerous. But the complaint with Sebastian Tenecti is end product. So great to see a finish. Great to see a really good goal. Again, my biggest, I was too tired by this point. I just wanted to get back to bed. So my main emotion here was relief that there was no risk now of extra time and penalties, and I could get back to my bed for the remaining 2 and a bit hours before I had to get up for work.
Oh no, I sat up for the draw because I was just like, I was wired. I was like, oh, maybe I'll sit up for the draw and see what Neil Lennon and Michael Stewart, because you had to obviously endure Michael Stewart in commentary. And it's quite funny because Craig Burley was on Twitter and he's talking about being a co-commentator and what the key principles of a co-commentator is. And he was listing them all down. And then somebody's hijacked the post and went, Mikey Stewart, and just went, doesn't speak over goals. Wrong. Just like basically just sort of says that he's probably one of the worst co-commentators going around. And him and one day Rory Hamilton will probably just punch him in the face. Rory wasn't commentating last night, but yeah, it's very funny. I had to have a wee laugh. Eddie's having a few sort of comments here, sort of saying that, don't blame Martinoneill for the board's incompetence. What's he supposed to say? I'm going to be honest. I could sit and listen to Martinoneill reading the phone book. I hang on his every word. Like, he's just that melodic tone. He just knows how to just handle journalists. he goes, I knew you were going to ask that question. Oh, like, here we go again. And he put Connie McLaughlin in her place last night. She was like, oh, well, you get any signings in? And he's like, yeah, we'll have them signed by the end of the season. And then she's just like that. And he's like, I'm joking. Like, but she's just like, not make a fool of her, but like, just sort of a bit of levity. Because like, he's probably been asked that same question about 20 times in the last.
Well, she actually said, is there any news since we asked you pre-match? That's what she said. And he said, you will have them in by the end of the season. And to be fair, she was a bit flummoxed, and then she went, the end of the winter season? Like, will they be here for spring? And he's like, he laughed off. But like, but this is the point. Like, it's so ridiculous that he's having to make jokes on live TV about signings. That, like, and as great as he is, that's a terrible state of affairs for him to be basically rolled out every week, 2 or 3 times a week, and have to have basically some sort of stand-up routine to deflect from the fact there's still nobody in the door. Absolute shambles. But it's been this way for a long time, and I think it will continue to be so. Anything we do this season is in spite of the board, in no way because of them.
Well, it sounds ridiculous, but you're almost heading into miracle territory, like the way we're going. Like, it's like it'd be a remarkable effort to win the league from this position, given
if we get a striker in before Hearts game,
a right winger.
No, even a quality striker that can hit the back of the net. That alone for the Hearts game, I think we win the match. If we win the match and then add another couple before the end of the window, I think we've probably managed to pull it out of the fire, but only because we've got an eel and only because we've got 2 or 3 reinforcements, and that's assuming we don't get any more injuries.
Well, that's the thing. You've got that aspect to it, but then also you've got a situation where lost my train of thought. That's right. What I was trying to say, that was the point I was trying to make, was that Hearts have been knocked out of the cup now. So they're going to have a few extra weekends or midweeks up the sleeve that we're not going to have. They're also not in Europe. So they can basically solely focus on the league from here on out. So as much as like they're upset that they've got knocked out, probably just harden their mindset that they need to, they're going to go for the league now. So it's just another dynamic. I mean, I'm not going to fixate too much on what Hearts are doing, but like, it's just one more potential thing that we're going to have to handle that they're not going to have to handle, I suppose. So I mean, again, it comes back to depth of squad and recruitment and all the things that we've been harping on about for the last 57 minutes. But yeah, like I said, it's just it's frustrating, and the fact that it's self-inflicted. And the other thing I just wanted to say is that we will probably pay somewhere in the realm of £20 million in tax because that money's not been spent. And how many players does that buy, Paul?
Well, it's corporate. That's corporation tax, isn't it? So that's not the figure for the whole.
Well, that was what was quoted. That was what was quoted during the week. I mean, but the point stands. Like, if you spend it, you don't have to pay tax on it. Like, you're sort of.
Well, no, absolutely.
It's sitting there.
Well, we're not paying 20 million of tax because we've not spent 80. But there will be tax to be paid on the earnings on the cash balance. There's a banker in me coming out. But either way, I think that we're probably one of only 2 clubs in Britain that's sitting on this amount of cash. Spurs being the other one. It's not normal.
Do you really want to be compared to Tottenham Hotspur?
No, it's not normal to sit on mountains and mountains of cash. Like you, and they're not even like in mid to long term investments getting returns. They're just in cash.
Funnily enough, they're the only other PLC as well, and they're also a bin fire at the moment because they sacked Ange and brought in Frank, and they're about to sack him because it's totally gone pear-shaped. I mean, the similarities are actually quite it's a worry, if nothing else. Paul, man of the match. It
was slim pickings again, wasn't it? I if you're looking at somebody who plays the whole match or close to the whole match, even though he's missed chances, Johnny Kenny would be in the mix. But I think even though he only played for a bit, Sebastian Tinecti gets it because he scores a wonder goal and he looks threatening every time he gets it. But, you know, that's your lot, really. Everyone else was pretty mediocre. But yeah.
I thought Forrest was okay. I mean, he's not playing his preferred position. I should have had a penalty. And we
didn't touch on that. We absolutely should have.
He absolutely
should have had a penalty.
He got clattered for the free kick. That should have been a yellow card. Like, he got clattered late on that. So that should have been a booking. That didn't get picked up. They brought it back for a free kick. There should be a yellow card there. And then he basically the same foul again, but only inside the box. And for whatever reason, it didn't get picked up. It should be a penalty. So I think James Forrest, he put a shift in. I mean, again, you know, whether it was whatever, but I thought he put a shift in. I suppose you'd say McCowan probably put a shift in. Whether the quality was there or not, it's debatable. Everyone else, I'd give it to Balakwisha. Sorry, Balakwisha.
You can if you want.
I've had too much red wine. Tinecti. Because he came on, Stores the sealer. He looked lively when he came on, and it's just hoping that maybe this is the kick on for him, and he realizes he's in that, you know, potentially in that left wing spot battle with Maeda. So I'll give it to him, Sebastian. Seb, as Martin was referring to him after the game, he gets my vote for man of the match, which is a bit damning considering he was on the park for 15, 20 minutes. But anyway, that's all it takes. Paul, we're over an hour. Recommendations? What you got for us?
So I'll do a little album recommendation of the week. So I think maybe in the show's previous guys on another channel, I recommended The Last Flight by Public Service Broadcasting as a previous album of the week. However, Public Service Broadcasting have done a remixes album of that called Night Flight. So obviously a play on The Last Flight. So The Last Flight, for those that haven't come across it, is a concept album by Public Service Broadcasting that celebrates Amelia Earhart's last ever flight attempt to navigate the globe, which she got most of the way around, and then the plane disappeared. So the album celebrates that, and the remixes album, The Night Flight, basically is a bit darker and a bit more electronic, and the remixes are really good. So if you're a fan of Public Service Broadcasting and you like the first album, check out the remixes album. If you haven't come across them, go check out anything by Public Service Broadcasting. They're quite quirky in that they produce all their own music, but they tap into old snippets of public broadcasting and sort of layer that through the music, and that sort of tells a story and a song. And the albums are quite concept based, but yeah, really cool band, and really good music as well. So yeah, the Public Service Broadcasting Night Flight, The Last Flight remixes album is my album recommendation of the week.
Fantastic, thank you. We've got stuck into Crime on SBS On Demand. I think you might have recommended this a while, ages. It's an old series. Dougray Scott and Irwin Welsh is the writer, so it's sort of based on his work. But really good series, free to watch on SBS On Demand if you're in Australia at the moment. So we watched the first season and we're into the second season now. But my wife likes the vernacular. They just sort of speak their minds, and
it's very good. It's very good. Ken Stott.
Yeah, Ken Stott's good. Dougray Scott kind of sometimes just overacts a bit, but then it's kind of like the part demands it. But sort of like if you can sort of get your head around that, then I've enjoyed it. It's good. But yeah, just the patter.
I think it's pretty true to the source material if you've read the book. obviously the original book by Irvin Welsh, and he was heavily involved in the series, I think, in terms of the, I think he was a producer or executive producer. So yeah, no, it's very good. The character is sort of has been in previous books. So he was in Filth, which made it as a movie with James McAvoy playing the lead character in that. And I think Jamie Bell played the Lennox character in that movie, but I think the Grey Scott does a fantastic job of it in crime. So yeah, well worth a look if you haven't seen it.
And this one here from the comments, Anton Rogan's left foot, I swear. Yep, I want to see that, but I'm not sure how we access that in Australia. So I'm definitely keeping an eye out for that.
Not available as yet, I don't think, down here. But
and the other one I want to watch, which I think comes out later this month, is Saipan, which is the Steve Coogan playing Mick McCarthy, and it's all about the ill-fated trip to the before the World Cup where Roy Keane blows up with Mick McCarthy. So I really want to watch that.
Should be good.
Steve Coogan. So I'm keeping an eye. I think it's at our independent sort of cinemas, I think, in the next couple of weeks. So yes, might be a date night, Paul. We might need to try and get our calendars together and see if we make that one work. Might be a good night. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. We're over an hour, so appreciate everybody joining us. I know it was a bit of a damp squib last night. These things happen. Be a self-supporter in 2026.
Off to Bologna. Off to Bologna to see what happens there.
Part of the bus. So we'll be back next week talking all things Hearts versus Celtic. We have a lovely little trip to Tynecastle and their very annoying tunnel, which is not centred on their halfway line, which annoys the hell out of me. We'll be watching that on the weekend, and we'll be back covering that, hopefully with a new striker in the door. Heaven forbid a striker and maybe one or two other players, but that would probably be asking too much of this lot. But we'll be there anyway. We'll be back covering that one. Paul, it's been a pleasure. We're both tired. We're both a wee bit emotional, but we'll be back next week. Hopefully a bit brighter, bushy-eyed, bright-eyed, all the rest of it. And all that's left to say is hail, hail.
Hail, hail.